What if the greatest limitation in your life is not what you do not know, but rather what you deeply believe you know?
Um, that idea flips everything we assume about human intelligence completely upside down. I mean, it fundamentally challenges how we perceive our own decision-making processes.
Let us unpack this. Today, we are looking at the invisible compass driving your career, your money, and your relationships. Specifically, we are exploring the massive, often misunderstood gap between belief and trust.
People treat those two words as identical in casual conversation. They use them interchangeably to describe, a feeling of confidence.
But they're not the same thing at all.
Not even close. When we analyze how the human brain actually processes reality, belief and trust represent opposing methods of interacting with the world.
Belief seeks absolute certainty, effectively closing the mind to alternative realities.
That is correct. Trust, on the other hand, embraces inherent uncertainty. It keeps the mind open to continuous observation.
If we want to understand why prioritizing adaptability over certainty matters so much for your future, we must look at how the human brain constructs its version of reality.
We need to examine what happens precisely at the moment when concrete evidence runs out.
Because the human mind possesses a profound biological intolerance for informational voids.
From an evolutionary standpoint, uncertainty signaled immediate physical danger. When ancient humans heard a rustle in the grass.
Not knowing what caused it produced a spike in stress hormones.
Indeed. Today, our brains treat intellectual uncertainty with that same primal stress response.
So when we lack comprehensive data about the future, belief steps in as a cognitive anesthetic.
It provides an immediate illusion of a complete map. It fills in the terrifying blank spaces.
It acts as the mortar between the bricks of our actual knowledge and the realities we deeply wish were true.
Trust operates on an entirely different cognitive frequency. Trust accepts that total certainty is, well, an impossible standard.
Instead of demanding a perfect map before taking a step, trust relies on continuous real-time observation.
It allows a person to say that based on the rigorous evidence available today, a given path appears reliable enough to move forward.
While strictly retaining the right to turn back.
Precisely.
Let me challenge that premise for a moment.
Yeah.
You make beliefs sound inherently dangerous, but did every major scientific revolution or cultural movement not require a massive amount of blind faith to even get off the ground?
Your observation highlights a critical nuance. The initial formulation of a belief is not inherently destructive.
Someone had to believe in a paradigm that did not yet exist.
Well, beliefs spark the initial fires of scientific and societal progress. A belief is highly productive when it functions as, a working hypothesis.
It gives individuals a motivation to explore the unknown.
The danger, then, emerges much later in the cognitive process. Beliefs only become a psychological prison when they transform from temporary hypotheses into rigid, immovable identities.
Because belief eventually demands absolute loyalty and permanent devotion from the individual holding it.
Trust, conversely, demands objective observation. It fully expects to evolve as new evidence presents itself.
To visualize this distinction, consider the engineering required to build two very different bridges across a turbulent, unpredictable river.
I find this visualization particularly useful.
The first bridge represents belief. It is constructed entirely of massive stone blocks.
It is aesthetically beautiful, entirely immovable, and designed to project an aura of absolute permanence.
It is a monument to certainty.
However, rivers are dynamic forces of nature.
If that river naturally changes course over a span of several decades, shifting entirely to the east,
that magnificent stone bridge becomes completely useless.
it remains standing with supreme confidence, but it merely spans dry land.
The structure refuses to acknowledge the new reality of the environment. I mean, it vividly illustrates how permanence creates eventual irrelevance.
In stark contrast is the second bridge, representing trust. This bridge is a modular suspension-based structure.
It is never built and then simply abandoned to time.
Instead, human engineers constantly inspect its cables.
They replace damaged steel sections, reinforce the pylons, and physically adapt the span of the bridge as the riverbanks erode and shift.
It requires vastly more energy to maintain, but it is the only structure guaranteed to survive changing conditions.
If trust is demonstrably more adaptable and resilient in a changing environment, we must ask why the human mind so fiercely protects its immovable stone bridges.
The answer is rooted in the biological mechanics of cognitive preservation. The human brain does not prioritize objective truth.
It prioritizes internal consistency. The brain represents roughly 2% of our total body weight.
yet it consumes 20% of our metabolic energy.
That is a staggering resource requirement. So, rewiring a fundamental worldview requires an immense amount of metabolic effort.
Therefore, maintaining a unified, undisturbed narrative of who we are requires significantly less energy than constantly tearing down and rebuilding our worldview.
We are talking about the mechanics of cognitive dissonance.
When you encounter information that contradicts a deeply held belief,
Your brain perceives it not just as an intellectual disagreement, but as a genuine physical threat.
it deploys defensive mechanisms to reject the new information and protect the existing neural pathways.
When logic battles identity, identity almost always emerges victorious.
Changing a deeply held belief through logical argument rarely succeeds because logic is forced to compete against this biological drive for preservation.
We see this mechanism manifest across every layer of modern society. Consider the political arena.
Voters will passionately defend politicians who are embroiled in undeniable documented scandals.
They will defend a documented scandal to the bitter end, simply because admitting the politician is wrong feels like admitting their own identity is broken.
The politician serves as an avatar for their own worldview.
We observe identical behavior in financial markets. Investors will stubbornly hold on to depreciating stocks, literally watching their wealth evaporate.
They do this solely because admitting a miscalculation inflicts far more psychological damage than the actual financial loss.
The sunk cost fallacy is fundamentally an ego protection mechanism.
We also see this phenomenon when entire communities reject rigorous scientific discoveries simply because those discoveries threaten long-held historical narratives.
Think about the last time you argued a point online, long after you realized you might actually be wrong.
That was not logic keeping you typing. That was your ego demanding preservation.
This widespread rejection of evidence quietly feeds the human ego. The ego revels in the sensation of absolute certainty.
It deeply enjoys the comfort and safety of belonging to a tribe of like-minded individuals who constantly validate its pre-existing ideas.
Modern digital technology acts as a massive amplifier for this specific cognitive flaw.
Social media algorithms are exquisitely engineered to exploit the ego's desire for tribal validation.
These algorithms do not reward intellectual nuance, nor do they reward thoughtful hesitation.
They explicitly reward absolute conviction and moral outrage.
Funneling users into digital echo chambers where their initial beliefs are never tested, only hardened.
The stark takeaway for anyone living in the modern era is this: having instantaneous access to the world's information does not automatically produce wisdom.
In many cases, this unprecedented flow of information only serves to reinforce rigid identity and produce stronger, increasingly unyielding beliefs.
If our internal psychology is so easily manipulated by identity, we face an interesting paradox.
How does anything in our society actually function? Why has the global economy not collapsed if we are all this prone to self-deception?
When we shift our focus from the internal mind to the external world, the answer becomes apparent.
Civilization and modern economies run entirely on trust, not belief.
Consider the everyday realities you navigate. You do not hold a spiritual belief that your commercial bank is fundamentally incapable of collapsing.
You do not hold a blind belief that every commercial airplane will safely touch down on the runway.
You certainly do not believe that every medical professional is flawless in their execution.
Yet, despite the absence of absolute belief, individuals continually entrust their life savings to the banking system.
They place their physical safety in the hands of the aviation industry and submit their bodies to medical procedures.
They do so because they trust the underlying systems. You trust the financial safeguards, the regulatory audits, and the cryptographic security of digital banking ledgers.
In aviation, you are relying on millions of overlapping nodes of trust.
You trust the aerospace engineering, the rigorous maintenance schedules, and the statistical weight of decades of accumulated flight data.
The pilot trusts the mechanic, who trusts the parts manufacturer, who trusts the metallurgist.
You are describing the fundamental architecture of the global marketplace. Every successful marketplace functions as a massive, intricate network of distributed trust.
Let us examine fiat currency. Paper money or digital numbers in a bank account hold purchasing power not because they are backed by physical gold or intrinsic value.
They function strictly because participants trust the issuing authority and the broader network of users to accept that currency as a reliable medium of exchange.
Corporate brands achieve global dominance solely because consumers trust the consistency of the product being delivered.
Leaders maintain their political or corporate influence exclusively because their followers trust their judgment over time.
History repeatedly demonstrates a harsh reality. When major institutions or governments collapse, it is rarely because the populace suddenly stopped believing in a specific ideology.
Institutions collapse the moment people stop trusting the operational mechanisms of that institution.
Hyperinflation, for example, is not a failure of belief. It is a total evaporation of systemic trust.
We can connect this macroeconomic concept directly to the microdynamics of your personal relationships.
The strongest relationships in your life do not endure because two people hold a delusional belief that the other person is perfect.
They endure because both individuals continuously demonstrate reliability through their actions.
Trust within a relationship is never a commodity that is handed over once and locked in a vault.
It is a dynamic metric that must be renewed and validated repeatedly.
When trust is broken in a relationship, repairing it requires a tedious, ongoing demonstration of new, reliable behaviors until the mental model is updated.
If trust requires this relentless, deliberate cycle of testing and behavioral renewal, how do the world's highest performers handle this burden?
How do they actively practice this framework of trust in intensely high-stakes environments?
Elite innovators, groundbreaking scientists, and highly successful investors share a deliberate psychological practice. They aggressively challenge their own foundational assumptions.
Their profound confidence does not stem from protecting their ideas from criticism.
Their confidence is generated entirely through the rigorous testing of those ideas. The internal monologue of a high performer is wired differently from the average individual.
Instead of asking the standard question, am I correct?
They train themselves to ask, what specific data would prove me wrong?
They actively hunt for disconfirming evidence.
This is the essence of scientific falsifiability. You cannot definitively prove a theory is entirely true forever.
You can only fail to prove it false under rigorous testing.
Scientists do not marry their hypotheses. They actively attempt to break them.
Elite investors spend vast amounts of time searching for the bear case against their own investments.
They look for reasons to abandon a strategy before the market forces them to do so.
The smartest room in any given building is never the room filled with rapid, absolute answers.
It is always the room filled with difficult, probing questions.
The mindset of elite mountaineers provides a perfect analogy for this approach to risk and certainty.
Professional climbers attempting to summit dangerous peaks never place their trust in the mountain itself.
Because they understand that weather patterns will shift violently, loose rocks will fall.
And critical survival equipment will eventually degrade under extreme conditions. The mountain is an unpredictable, highly volatile variable.
Instead of trusting the environment to remain safe, they place their absolute trust in their intense preparation.
Their redundant safety systems, and their personal capacity to respond to sudden chaos.
Applying this philosophy to daily life is liberating. You cannot control macroeconomic markets.
You cannot halt the march of technology, and you cannot dictate the behavior of other human beings.
You can, however, cultivate intense personal adaptability.
This specific type of adaptability requires us to reinterpret a very common trope found within modern self-help culture.
The frequent advice dictating that you must simply trust yourself is deeply misunderstood by the general public.
It does not imply that you should assume your initial emotional instincts are flawlessly accurate.
Nor does it mean your current beliefs are untouchable.
True self-trust means having unwavering confidence in your ability to learn new information.
To recover from devastating setbacks, and to fundamentally change your mind when presented with superior data.
Under this framework, mistakes are stripped of their emotional weight. They cease to be indictments of your character and become purely objective data points.
Failure ceases to be a reflection of your worth and transforms into essential high-quality feedback.
In this state, you no longer fear the act of being wrong. Your only fear is the tragedy of staying wrong.
As we synthesize these concepts, one undeniable theme emerges. The future belongs exclusively to the adaptable.
We are rapidly entering an era dominated by artificial intelligence, widespread industrial automation, and revolutionary biotechnology.
This technological acceleration forces humanity into a paradigm where certainty expires faster than at any point in human history.
The global economy will no longer reward rigid, uncompromising conviction.
Individuals who cling desperately to rigid beliefs will find themselves struggling to navigate this new terrain.
Strong identities built upon fixed, permanent beliefs are structurally fragile. When the environment inevitably changes, those fragile identities fracture under the stress.
Let us introduce a specific framework here. There is a profound difference between being fragile, being robust, and being anti-fragile.
A fragile system breaks under stress. like a glass dropping on the floor.
A robust system simply resists the stress and stays the same, like a steel beam.
An anti-fragile system, however, actually requires stress and volatility to improve. It grows stronger when challenged.
Human muscle tissue is antifragile. It tears under the stress of lifting weights, only to rebuild itself denser and stronger.
Strong identities constructed upon a foundation of relentless curiosity become anti-fragile.
They do not merely survive new, challenging information.
They utilize that information to become vastly more intelligent and capable.
This brings us to a direct challenge for you to reflect upon regarding your daily choices. Every single day, you are making a deliberate allocation of your cognitive resources.
Ask yourself how you are spending your mental energy.
Are you spending your precious energy aggressively defending the person you have always been? Or are you investing that energy in the person you are still becoming?
True intellectual freedom is realizing that personal growth does not require abandoning your core self.
It simply requires trusting yourself enough to permit the evolution into someone wiser tomorrow.
Letting go of a stone bridge does not mean you are drowning. It means you are finally learning how to build a dynamic vessel that can navigate the river.
As we conclude our analysis of this material, there is a final lingering question we must extrapolate from these themes.
It is a concept for you to ponder independently as you navigate your own decisions.
As we move deeper into a future dominated by advanced artificial intelligence,
We will interact daily with systems engineered to perfectly mimic reliability and supreme confidence.
large language models already speak with absolute certainty, even when hallucinating false information.
We must ask ourselves a profound new question regarding the nature of our interactions.
When a machine consistently demonstrates reliability, are we genuinely placing our trust in its true underlying competence?
Or are we simply trusting its ability to flawlessly perform the illusion of trustworthiness?
Determining the difference between actual competence and the mere performance of certainty will be the critical skill of the next decade.
That is a staggering question that will define the next chapter of our relationship with technology.
We must constantly evaluate whether we are building stone bridges to nowhere or modular bridges to the future. Thank you for joining us as we explored the invisible forces shaping our decisions on this deep dive. Let us continue to question the map, even as we trust the journey.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Deep Thoughts Podcast. I hope you found insights and inspiration to take with you on your journey of self-growth. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to follow us on social media to stay updated on new releases and exclusive content. See you next time, where we'll continue to help you grow and explore your full potential.